100 battles, 0 losses. From the scorching sands of Arabia to the gates of the Persian and Byzantine empires, one man stood undefeated. He was a master of psychological warfare, a genius of desert logistics, and a warrior who broke 9 swords in a single day. This is the story of Khalid ibn al-Walid, the man history remembers as the Sword of Allah. To understand the legend, we must first look at the man before the mission. Khalid was born into the Banu Makhzum, a high-ranking clan of the Quraysh tribe in Mecca. In the social hierarchy of the time, the Makhzum were the masters of war. While other clans handled trade or pilgrimage, Khalid's family handled the cavalry and military planning. From the moment he could walk, he was trained to be a weapon. He didn't just learn how to ride, he learned how to master the most temperamental stallions of the desert. He didn't just learn to swing a sword, he learned the anatomy of a strike, the weight of the shield, and the endurance required for a campaign that lasted months.
By the time he reached adulthood, Khalid was a physically imposing figure, tall, broad-shouldered, and possessing a commanding presence that demanded respect. But it was his mind that truly set him apart. He possessed an innate ability to read terrain, to sense the enemy's fear, and to strike exactly where they were most vulnerable.
For the first part of his life, this genius was directed against the rise of Islam. When the Prophet Muhammad began preaching in Mecca, the Quraysh saw it as a threat to their way of life and their economic power. Khalid, a loyal son of Mecca, stood with his people.
In the year 625, at the Battle of Uhud, the world got its first real glimpse of Khalid's tactical brilliance. The Muslim forces had the upper hand until a group of archers abandoned their post on a hill, sensing an early victory. Most commanders would have been preoccupied with the chaos of the center, but Khalid saw the opening.
He led a swift cavalry charge around the mountain, hitting the Muslim flank and turning a near defeat for the Meccans into a devastating blow against the early Islamic community.
Yet, as the years passed, the tide began to shift. The discipline of the Muslims and the conviction of their message began to weigh on Khalid's mind. After the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, Khalid's brother, who had already converted to Islam, wrote him a letter. He told Khalid that the Prophet had asked about him, remarking that a man of Khalid's intelligence could not remain ignorant of the truth of Islam for long.
In the year 629, Khalid made a choice that would change the map of the world. He rode from Mecca to Medina, not to fight, but to submit. When he met the Prophet Muhammad, he asked for forgiveness for his past actions against the faith. The Prophet welcomed him, and from that moment on, the man who had been the greatest enemy of the Muslims became their most formidable shield.
His first major test under the banner of Islam came just months later at the Battle of Mu'tah. This was the Muslims' first encounter with the power of the Byzantine Empire. The odds were catastrophic. Reports suggest the Muslim army of 3,000 faced a Roman and allied Arab force numbering over 100,000.
3 successive Muslim commanders were killed in the heat of battle. The ranks were on the verge of total collapse. Khalid took the standard. He knew they couldn't win a head-on battle, but they could survive.
He orchestrated a brilliant psychological ruse. He reshuffled his entire army under the cover of night. He moved the right wing to the left to the right, and brought the rear guards to the front. He ordered his men to stir up as much dust as possible. When the sun rose, the Byzantines saw new faces and heard different voices. They believed massive reinforcements had arrived from Medina. Fearing a trap, the Byzantines held their position, allowing Khalid to execute a fighting retreat and bring his men home. It was for this feat of survival and leadership that the Prophet gave him the title Saifullah, the Sword of Allah.
After the Prophet's passing, the Islamic State faced its greatest internal crisis, the Ridda Wars, or the Wars of Apostasy. Many tribes across Arabia believed their allegiance was to the Prophet personally, not to the state, and they rebelled. The Caliph Abu Bakr knew there was only one man who could reunify the peninsula. He dispatched Khalid.
The campaign was brutal and swift. Khalid moved like a whirlwind from one rebellion to the next. The most significant clash was the Battle of Yamama against the self-proclaimed prophet Musaylima. The fighting was so intense it took place in an orchard that would later be known as the Garden of Death.
Khalid's victory there didn't just end the rebellion, it solidified the Islamic State and prepared it for what was to come next, the challenge of the superpowers.
To the north lay the Sassanid Persian Empire and the Byzantine Roman Empire. They were the giants of the age, and they viewed the Arabs as nothing more than fragmented desert nomads. They were wrong.
Khalid's campaign into Persian Iraq is a masterclass in military history. In a series of 4 major battles, the Battle of Chains, the Battle of the River, the Battle of Walaja, and the Battle of Ulis, he systematically dismantled Persian resistance.
At the Battle of Walaja, Khalid executed a perfect double envelopment, a pincer movement so precise it is often compared to Hannibal's victory at Cannae. He hid cavalry units behind ridges, waiting for the Persians to commit their center, then closed the trap. The Persian army, one of the most sophisticated in the world, was annihilated.
But even as Iraq was falling, the Byzantines were massing a massive force in Syria. Caliph Abu Bakr sent a desperate message to Khalid: get to Syria immediately. Between Khalid's position in Iraq and the Syrian front lay the Syrian desert, a waterless, trackless wasteland that no army was expected to cross. Khalid did it anyway. He took a small elite force and made the march in 5 days. To solve the water problem, he forced several camels to drink excessive amounts of water, then tied their mouths so they couldn't chew. He used them as mobile reservoirs, killing them one by one to provide water for the horses. When his scouts, who were nearly blind from the sun, finally spotted a specific tree that marked the edge of the desert, Khalid knew he had achieved the impossible. He appeared behind Byzantine lines like a ghost, catching them completely off guard. This led to the climax of his career, the Battle of Yarmouk in 636 AD. The numbers were staggering. Roughly 40,000 Muslims faced upwards of 150,000 Byzantines. The battle lasted 6 grueling days. It was a test of pure endurance and tactical flexibility. Khalid organized a mobile guard, an elite cavalry unit that acted as a rapid response force, galloping to whichever part of the line was buckling under the Roman pressure.
On the 6th day, Khalid transitioned from defense to a massive counteroffensive. He trapped the Byzantine cavalry and separated them from their infantry. The Roman ranks broke. In the confusion and the dust, thousands of Byzantine soldiers fell into the steep ravines of the Yarmouk River.
The victory was total. It marked the end of Byzantine rule in Syria and opened the doors to the Levant and Egypt. However, at the very height of his glory, Khalid was met with a shock. The new caliph, Umar, sent a letter relieving him of his command. To many, this seemed like an act of jealousy or spite, but the reality was more complex. Umar feared that the people were starting to believe that victory came from Khalid himself, rather than from God. Khalid, the man who had conquered nations, showed his greatest strength in this moment of humility. He did not rebel. He did not use his massive popularity with the troops to seize power. He famously said, "I fight for the God of Umar, not for Umar." He stepped down from his high command and continued to fight as a common soldier, under the leadership of men who had once been his subordinates. Khalid spent his final years in Homs, Syria. The man who had survived 100 battles and thousands of duels did not die on the battlefield. He died in his bed. It is said that on his deathbed, he wept, not out of fear, but out of frustration. He pulled up his tunic to show his friend his body, covered in scars from sword gashes, spear thrusts, and arrow wounds. He said, "I have sought martyrdom in 100 battles. There is not a space the size of a hand on my body that does not have a scar. And yet, here I am, dying in bed like a camel. May the eyes of cowards never sleep." His friend comforted him, reminding him that the prophet had named him the Sword of Allah.
A sword of Allah cannot be broken on the battlefield. It was destined to be returned to its sheath by the one who created it.
Khalid ibn al-Walid's legacy is etched into the very geography of the Middle East. He was a man of contradictions, a fierce warrior who showed mercy to the defeated, a high-ranking noble who accepted the life of a commoner, and a commander who never lost a battle but won his greatest victory over his own ego. He transformed a group of desert tribes into a global power that would change the course of human history forever. Even today, military academies around the world study his maneuvers, his use of light cavalry, and his mastery of psychological warfare. He remains the gold standard for leadership under pressure.
Subscribe